So hello and welcome back to the FPL Talk channel, and today we're going to be looking at my latest draft in FPL. Obviously, I've been chopping and changing it like many people, and it's really hard just to nail down one team because there's so many good options this year. And with players' performances in pre-season that keep catching my eye, I keep putting them in, and then another player might impress, and then I put him in, and it's really hard. But we're going to have to start nailing down the decision because game week 1 is going to be upon us in no time, and it's a very scary stage because I just know a player that I had in that I'm going to take out is going to score, and then the one I put in just isn't going to score. But as I said, today we're going to look at my latest draft and what I've got as of now. The main debate at the moment is Haaland or Harry Kane, so we'll also look at that discussion. But without further ado, let's get into my goalie position. So starting off in goal, I've gone for Ederson. Now, I feel like Ederson is the best option simply because, yes, there's some good options around the 5 million, 4.5 million mark. But you just know these premium keepers such as Alisson and Ederson are going to keep clean sheets pretty much every week. And this means that you don't have to waste a transfer on a goalkeeper position. Whereas you might if you go for a 4.5 million keeper. Whereas some people do think that just playing it safe in goal and going for that cheaper keeper so they can spend more money elsewhere is the better option. I think these clean sheet points that you'll get from the keeper position and the save bonuses can majorly contribute to your overall rank, and they're just beneficial to go for, to be honest. We all know how strong Man City are, and Ederson's literally the most nailed on player in that Man City 11, and with the volume of clean sheets they're going to get and the squad depth they have this season, I can only see him getting pretty much 6 points most games week in, week out, and that's only going to contribute, as I said, to my overall rank. Yes, there are some good 5 million keepers. You can look at the likes of Mendy for 5 million from Chelsea. Yes, they've struggled in pre-season. However, I expect Chelsea to be very strong going into the season. They have signed Sterling and Koulibaly. They're trying to really restructure that defence after losing like Christensen, Rudiger. They've lost quite a few at the back, and they're looking to bring in Cucurella as well as of today, trying to hijack Man City's deal. If they do that, they could be looking very good. But Mendy is the best 5 million keeper to go for. If you want a cheaper keeper, 4.5 million, Sanchez is probably best. But as I say, first week he's got Man United away. That's already like jeopardised your clean sheet points for your goalkeeper position. Yes, he could get some save bonuses. That's the only benefit of going for the cheaper option, is that they're going to get more save points for you. But again, they've got to make 3 saves to just get 1 point, so that is a hard task to do. But again, Ederson, I feel like, is the best keeper to go for, in my opinion, and that is why I've gone for him. If we take a look at his information here, he's selected by 16.1%, cost him that 5.5 million, and obviously it doesn't really matter what his fixtures actually are, just because of how good Man City perform week in, week out. But as you can see there, he's got so many green fixtures, and he's always got a good game every week, other than that game week 11 where he plays Liverpool. But then again, everyone's got to play Liverpool at some point, and he could still keep a clean sheet against Liverpool. Maybe not at Anfield, but when they play at home, he possibly could. And they've got 2 newly promoted sides in their first 5 game weeks, so it's a very good chance for Ederson to get me these points. And that is why I've gone for the 5.5 million goalkeeper. Get in the comments, what keeper have you chosen, and let me know why you have. Now, many people have been deliberating what the best formation is in FPL, and we may as well do a video on this in the future because there's so many different options that you could have. 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back, and many people were fond of the 3 at the back in the previous season just because of how many good attacking options there were, and there weren't many defensive players getting too many points. You could look at the likes of Trent, Cancelo and Reece James as a back 3, but then again, you've heavily invested in your back line. But for this year, I feel like the prices of defenders are far more superior than forwards and midfielders around the same value. First of all, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. There's a reason why he's the most expensive defender in the game, gets the most attacking returns out of any defender there is, and I feel like you've just got to have him in. You might want to save 0.5 million with Robertson, but then again, Robertson just isn't going to outperform Trent now. A major talking point has been which third Liverpool player to use. A lot of people have opted to go for Robertson instead of Diaz because that third Liverpool player can really contribute to your team, how strong they are. I wouldn't really go for the triple up on Man City simply because there's pet roulette and you don't know who's going to play in the midfield and attacking positions, but with Trent Alexander-Arnold, you know he's guaranteed to play, and Robertson consistently produces good points every single year, and whereas Luis Diaz is new to the Prem and this is his first full season, you don't know what you're going to get. Also, Robertson is that £1 million cheaper, so if you feel like you really want to save money and to spend it elsewhere and the rest of your team is struggling, that could be something what you want to do, simply because then you'd have to go for Luis Diaz and you could go for the likes of Bukayo Saka in midfield, or you could even upgrade and stretch to a Sterling just because you've saved an extra million and you've got money elsewhere. But that is something you could do. And obviously, as I just mentioned, I do have Cancelo there. He's pretty much the most nailed on Man City defender out of all of them, other than Edison in goal, but he's not in the defensive line. We saw how good Cancelo was last year. He did just get absolutely shredded in the Community Shield by Salah, especially in that first 10 minutes. He was all over him, but obviously it's pre-season, he's getting out the cobwebs, and Cancelo is always going to be a good one to have. I didn't have him last year, and every week he just returned points. As you can see, 201 points last year. Very, very good, and he's selected by 45%, which only just reflects how quality he actually is. He comes in with the same fixtures as Edison. Again, 2 newly promoted teams in the first 5 game weeks. You can expect Man City to start the season strongly just because of how good of a team they are. And he is one I feel like you should definitely have. If I was recommending people to nail in your team, Trent and Cancelo would be the 2 defenders I would say you should certainly go for. Then we've got Reece James. As we said about Mendy before, Chelsea do look like they had a bit of a ropey pre-season, but again, pre-season you shouldn't judge too much on what players are actually doing. People are coming back from international and only had a few weeks off, or they've just been enjoying their life going on holiday and not been in the best shape possible, but I'm sure they'll find their form very soon. 141 points for Reece James, considerably less than Cancelo, but this is because he did suffer with his injuries. But you can just see how good his attacking returns were, because 39.8% of people have actually selected him, and that is just reflecting of his talent. If we look at Chelsea's fixtures, again, they've got a brilliant start to the season, only playing Liverpool in game week 8, and the teams in the top 4, their only real tough fixtures are playing Liverpool and Man City, really. They can compete against everyone else and have a high chance of getting those returns. Tottenham second week, they're at home, they could do better, but obviously we want our Spurs assets, which attacking assets for Spurs are incredible to do well. So it's a bit of a win-lose situation there, because you're going to get a clean sheet and no one's going to score for Spurs, or Spurs are going to score and you'll lose your Reece James clean sheet. But Reece James is certainly someone I would go for because of how influential he is attacking-wise. Now, we've gone for Zinchenko as our other defender, just because this is a great signing for Arsenal. A very versatile player, he can play left back and centre mid, and if he is utilised in that centre mid position, then he could be a great asset, because he's only going to increase our attacking returns. Now, only 59 points last year, obviously it's going to be low because of Pep Roulette, and he had Cancelo starting ahead of him, but now he does have Tierney, and Tierney's already injury prone, so he's got double a chance of playing because he can play left back and centre mid. 5 million, again, I just feel like he's a better option than Perisic. Perisic very much suffering with injuries, and he's quite old, and I don't think he's going to start many of the first 3 games. I think Perisic might start 1 or 2 and not all of them, whereas I feel like Zinchenko could start every single game. 12.7% selected, which is a really high amount percent selected already for a newly signed player, and I feel like that number's only going to increase just because of him playing for Arsenal and being a very good Arsenal asset with the start to the season that they have. Obviously, if we look at his fixtures, he's got Crystal Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham, and then Villa. Again, 2 newly promoted sides in his first 5. A really good chance to kickstart the season and get me some good FPL points. And I feel like he's a very safe option to go for. The 0.5 millions this year are quite poor. There's not too many. I could swap Zinchenko to a Kieran Trippier, but I feel like Arsenal are a lot stronger. Look at them in pre-season, they just won like 5 or 6-0 versus Sevilla, and I just feel like these Arsenal assets are far more reliable from the elite clubs rather than trying to go for a Newcastle asset. Then I've gone for my bit of a differential as my final defender, Luca Digne. This is because, yes, Matty Cash's ownership on the other side is far more superior, but Luca Digne, only 3.9% selected, that's a good differential, and he's on indirect free kicks and corners, and this gives us the good a chance of getting the bonus points with the attacking returns, simply because he's going to be whipping balls in, and for the likes of Mings and Diego Carlos now. But I just feel like even though he's not very consistent, he may find some consistency with Villa's start to the season. A lot of people favouring, like Coutinho has 20% selected, which is crazy. It's 7 million, which is quite pricey for an Aston Villa midfielder. If I was going for an Aston Villa midfielder, I'd probably go Leon Bailey. Had an incredible pre-season and looking really sharp. And Steven Gerrard said he's come back a different player. But for defence, I'm going Luca Digne, differential. Just because he's on those set pieces, really, and he's a very attacking fullback. If we look at his fixtures, as I just said, Villa have a very nice start. Bournemouth, Everton, Palace and West Ham. After game week 4, based on how Lamptey's playing, I'm looking at bringing Lamptey in because Brighton have a really nice start to the season with their fixtures. And if Lamptey gets a nice run in a right wing back position, I'm going to look at transferring him in. But I'm happy to go with Luca Digne from the start. So that is my defence. Let's get into the midfield. So moving into midfield now, starting off we do have Mo Salah. Now this man has not changed from my team since FPL first launched because of how good he actually is. If we take a look at his stats here, 13 million, obviously the most expensive player in the game, but like Trent, there's a reason for that. 265 points is the highest of any player last season in FPL, and 58.6% have selected him. I honestly thought that'd be a lot higher of a figure. That just means 6 in every 10 players has picked him, which is interesting that like so many are going to go without him. If you see, look, his threat, he's got the highest threat last season and the highest influence out of any midfielder in the Premier League, which is just what you want in your team. And he started really sharp in the Community Shield the other day, looking really good, and I'm going to have Mo Salah in the team. He's returned in the past 5 game week 1s with a goal or an assist, and he's also got Fulham first game week, which is just a newly promoted team. Yes, they're going to be riled up and raring to go, but Liverpool's quality always shines through, just as it did when they played Norwich last season. You might say Fulham are better than Norwich, but still, they're still 2 newly promoted sides. But Mo Salah is a nailed-on starter for me, and probably going to take the armband game week 1 simply because of that. Next up, we have Neto. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Neto, whether to go for him or not, simply because last season he only got 22 FPL points, and his injuries did play a big factor. But he's been looking good in pre-season, and for 5.5 million with Wolves fixture run, you've got to really favour them. 19.2% selected him just because of how good of a budget option he is, and around that price range there honestly isn't too many to go for, and he's looking like the best one. If we look at his fixtures there, we can take a look at Wolves' start to the season. They've got Leeds, Fulham, then Tottenham's a hard game, but Newcastle at home, Bournemouth away and Southampton at home. You could start him in a lot of those games, and you can just rotate him with a player on the bench, really. He's just a really, really good cheap option to have there. Raul Jimenez also getting injured in pre-season, which means Neto, it could play a lot more than he was already going to. And it's looking like he's probably going to be the most nailed-on attacker. Now, I was looking at Wolves defenders for 4.5 million, but they just don't convince me too much. And Cody's 5 million, they just don't, like Aït-Nouri and Johnny. Which one? They'll probably both start. You've also got Semedo when he returns for injury, but I don't want to waste a transfer on that. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. But I don't think I'm gonna go for any Wolves defender. Neto going to be the only Wolves player I actually go for, and hopefully he can stay fit. Now, next up we do have Luis Diaz. We just saw his quality last season of how good he actually was. 64 points since he joined Liverpool halfway through the season, and this is going to be his first full season in the Premier League, and we saw how quickly he adapted last season. I went to go and watch Liverpool versus West Ham at Anfield this season. The season just gone, obviously. And he just was all over us. He was far better than Salah, to be fair. And Luis Diaz was Liverpool's most influential player. Coming in at 8 million, a lot of people thought he'd be like 9.5 million. But that's so cheap for a Liverpool attacker. And obviously Jota has just suffered that hamstring injury, which means he's only going to play more. Darwin Núñez can also play off the left, but I don't think Klopp's going to favour him off the left, to be honest. 24.6% selected. I mean, the debate is, do you go Saka or Luis Diaz? And you've got to think about the overall balance of the team. Do you want to go for an Arsenal double up, or do you want to go for a Liverpool double up? And the Liverpool double up is far more better, and we haven't actually looked at Liverpool's fixtures yet. So if we deep dive, yes, they have Fulham first, but then they do have Palace, United, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, Wolves. They do have Man United in there, which is ranked as a 4 difficulty game, so the max, which is interesting because a lot of people wouldn't put Man United in the top category of difficult fixtures, but they have looked very sharp in pre-season, to be fair to them, United. And under Ten Hag, they could be very effective with Rashford, Sancho looking good. Also, Martial returning and looking very effective, but his fixtures are incredible. And again, just like Man City, it doesn't really matter who Luis Diaz plays because they're always going to be goals in games that Liverpool play. But that is my midfield. Let's take a look at my strikers now and what I've gone for in the forward line. So here we are then, the final bit. We're going to look at my strikers and my bench players. Starting off, we have Gabriel Jesus, who's one of the most owned players in the game. 70.4% selection rate. He's higher owned than Salah, who was the highest scoring FPL player last season. So that is an incredible selection rate from FPL players. Now, this is due to the fact of how good he's been in pre-season and been on red-hot form as of Arsenal. And he's looking to be a really good sign. And obviously, we can't be too quick to judge because he's not played in the Premier League. But he's looking decent so far. Coming in at 8 million, which only increases his ownership because there's not many forwards around that 8 million mark who are as effective as as Jesus is. There's Antonio Wilson, people like that, Tony, but they're very fixture dependent, whereas Jesus is a nailed-on striker in a top 6 club who can pretty much score against any team. He might struggle with Liverpool, Man City, but he's got a higher chance of scoring against any team than the other players around that mark. Only 120 FPL points last season, which is still quite high considering he was part of Pep Roulette, and they claimed he didn't have a striker, but he managed to score 4 goals in one game and against Real Madrid in the Champions League. So they secretly did have a striker, they just didn't trust him enough. The starting fixtures are certainly going to help him as well. Crystal Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham and Aston Villa, 2 newly promoted sides in their first 5 games, certainly going to help him, and I can see him starting the season very strongly, so I am on the wave with Jesus. Now the next one is the controversial one. I've actually gone for Harry Kane over Haaland, and now little confession, I already didn't have Haaland before the Community Shield, and that Community Shield has justified my opinion so far. Obviously, it's only one game, so you can't take too much from it. But he did miss that open goal. But he was making some really good runs, Haaland. But Man City like the cutback and don't play as direct, where Haaland was making some really sharp runs in the box, and they just weren't finding him. So maybe they need to adapt their game just to suit around Haaland a bit more so he can get those chances. But Harry Kane, I feel like, is a better option simply because you know what you're getting. He's guaranteed to play, guaranteed minutes, and obviously guaranteed goals. He still starts the season a bit slow, some people say, but 192 FPL points is really solid, and 11.5 million is the same price as Haaland, so no issues there. Only 25.4% selection rate, which I thought would be a lot higher considering of how good Spurs' attack actually is, especially last season when they signed the Swedish man Kulusevski from Juventus, and they only improved. But if we do jump into his fixtures, Southampton starting off, I couldn't not have a Spurs attacker in that first game week. I feel like I really miss out, and I'd go on Twitter and see Kane goal, Son assist, and I would just feel like, oh, why have I not got one of them? But now I do. Chelsea away was the only thing, leaning me towards Haaland, because that is a tough second fixture. But if I really wanted to, I could always jump to Haaland's second game week and transfer out Kane, because I know Haaland's got, I think, Forest at home or something like that. It might be Bournemouth at home. It's one of the newly promoted teams, and it's a very relatively easy fixture for him. So if I always want to do that and jump ship, I can, and I have that option, but I want to have him for Southampton at home in the first game week. So that is my thinking. Get in the comments, did you go for Kane or Haaland? I feel like you can't go for 3 premiums. Originally I tried to, but it's just too much of a sacrifice. If I go for Haaland and Kane up front, then my overall team is going to suffer, and that'll impact on my overall rank. Whereas if I just go for one, I can spread out my money more wisely, and it'll only allow my overall game week points to be higher. And then on the bench, I've got Forster in goal in case Lloris gets injured. No 4 million keeper is guaranteed to play at the minute, so it's just pick whichever you like. Andreas Pereira from Fulham, very, very solid option. As you can tell, he's signed for Fulham, going to play in that attacking midfield position. And for the cheapest midfielder in the game, he's a great budget option. You've then got a player that's guaranteed to play. He's also like Nico Williams, if you don't want to go 5 at the back, also get him in. Andreas Pereira, I could even play most weeks. If he plays at home like v Forest or Bournemouth, I could even start him, to be honest. And with Mitrovic up front, he's going to be a good provider. Looking like he could be on a few set pieces as well, which could be cheeky and something to watch out for. Then I've got De Silva from Brentford. Now, Christian Eriksen leaving is a big loss for Brentford. We saw how much improved they were when they had Christian Eriksen, but De Silva has done well in pre-season, and he just lets play in that attacking role that Eriksen operated in, and it could be a big season for him. I don't know whether he's going to start games for Brentford, but we'll wait and see. I'm taking a risk on that, but I do have Andreas Pereira there who will play anyway, so it's not much of a risk. It's backed up with Pereira. Then I've got Greenwood just for the money elsewhere. There's no real cheap strikers that are playing, so yes, you could go Undav if you have the extra money, but I've got 0.5 million in the bank, and I want to save that in case I want to move elsewhere in the team, and some player starts performing well and I want to jump to him, whereas if I had no money in the bank, I wouldn't be able to do that. But that is my team. Get in the comments, who are you going to captain in game week 1? I was tempted by Kane, but I'm going to stick with Salah. So that has been the video today. If you are new, please subscribe because we're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Also drop a like on the video if you have enjoyed this. This is my latest draft. It could change, but I'm very happy with this at the moment, and I will see you in the next video.